All right, so before we get started, just want to share some good news with you all. Pray for Micah Podcast just reached over 500 downloads across all platforms. Yay! That was my very strained, excited, but really genuinely excited robot voice. Hey, but what I would really appreciate from you today to help me celebrate is please leave a review for the Pray for Micah podcasts on your Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you're listening on the streaming platforms, YouTube. The next person who shares their review of the show, obviously hopefully a positive review, will be featured on our next episode. So go ahead, smash that like, subscribe while you're at it if you haven't, but also please help us celebrate our 500 downloads by leaving a review. Well, without further ado.
Welcome to Pray for Mica. And now your host, Micah Chrisman.
Welcome to the Pray for Micah podcast, where we explore art, activism, spirituality, and our cosmic insignificance/significance. I'm here with Sarah Pickrell, and she is a yoga practitioner, spiritual director, and artist. Braiding these practices has led to incredible healing and connection in her own life, and she is thankful to guide others in the work. As a registered yoga practitioner, she's committed to radical body acceptance, inclusivity, and yoga as a pathway to connect more deeply with our bodies, our minds, and one another. As a certified spiritual director, she creates space for individuals to welcome their truest selves through conversation, breath, and body awareness. Sarah shares a home with her partner, Nick, and her two ornery terriers, Socks and Rocky. So, Sarah, who's worse to take care of, Nick or Socks and Rocky?
Oh my God, that is an excellent question to start with. They're equally terrible at various times, but mostly delightful, all three of them.
All three of them.
Yeah.
I'm sure Socks and Rocky are a little better potty trained than Nick.
Depends on the day, Micah, and I have stories, but that's probably not the podcast for this.
This is the podcast for that. So everybody, Nick was in the last episode. I had him here. Now we have his lovely wife, Sarah, who arguably we probably should have had her on first because everyone apparently likes Sarah better than Nick. That's what Nick said in the podcast.
Oh, that's amazing.
He's like, everybody becomes friends with Sarah and then doesn't want to be my friend anymore.
I do try to leech the friends, and it's working really well for me. Like, yeah, he had really amazing friends when we joined forces, I guess. And now they're all mine, and I'm really happy about that. Yeah.
Well, thank you for being on the show today with us. I was going to have you do yoga. I thought, no, just
my God, that's amazing.
How do you do yoga on a podcast? I guess you just record,
Yeah, it would be like very minimal chair yoga movements. It's possible. Plus, yoga doesn't have to be postures. That's just one element of yoga. So, there's a variety of things we could do. We could practice nonviolence together.
Yes, I love that.
That would also be yoga. Yeah.
Yeah, didn't think about that.
Yeah.
I just do yoga with Adrian, and then
it's great. Like
that's what I do at home. That's my yoga practice.
I love that. I do love. She actually is pretty amazing as like a free resource, and I think she incorporates more than just the movements themselves, inviting people into a deeper yoga practice, and I love that. So yeah, do it.
And I like because it's free. It's usually I'll pick like a 20-25 minute.
Yes. Yeah.
I'm like, okay, I'll do that once, maybe twice a day max. And
twice a day. That's awesome.
Sometimes.
Some days. Yeah.
There's some days where I'm like, okay, it's 8:00. I feel like I just need another session. It's something I've kind of started to do in 2022 more. I used to do at-home yoga more a few years ago, kind of fell out of the practice, but I'm the worst when it comes to motivating myself to go to a gym membership. And I told myself I wasn't going to buy a gym membership this year and not go because that's what inevitably would happen. Exhibit A, there's snow all over the ground outside. So why even waste that money when I can just motivate myself to just, and then it's way more gentle on my body. And
that's true. And you can work with your own rhythms.
Yes.
I think that I also resonate with that. Not to speak that everybody should dump their gym membership. I think there's obviously great benefits, and I've had seasons of life that the gym has been very helpful and healthful, but I do find that it's then more a tool of shame for me for not going.
Right.
And then I almost want like a charitable giving tax receipt at the end of the year because I didn't use it and I just donated my money to the gym, to Planet Fitness.
And that's their hustle, right? Like they're like, get this gym membership because we know you'll come for a month and then no one will be there in March.
Yes. Oh my God. It is true. January I teach yoga at Woodside presently. And it's been I've just noticed the January influx and I forgot about that. I mean, it's also the semi post-COVID influx where people are wanting to get back out.
Feel safer coming out.
Although Omicron, I'm just like, this feels like the least safe time
Breathe
to get
deeply, but maybe not so deeply today.
So deeply. Keep your breath to yourself.
Keep your breath within a 5-6 foot radius around you, please.
Oh my gosh. I'm waiting for yoga in bubbles. What is it, like soccer or something? Whatever, like ball game that involves ball, but they're like inside the bubbles. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Oh, no. Yeah.
Or maybe it's not a ball. You just like crash into each other. I see it on the Nelson lawns sometimes in the summer. Yeah. It looks fun.
Do yoga in those
like bubble boy yoga. Bubble person yoga.
I'm already showing up as a bubble boy for my yogas. Okay, let's just this ass is thick, y'all. So when I'm doing my yoga, I'm already doing
built-in bubble.
I've got a built-in bubble already. Trust me.
That's
hey, Sarah, cheers.
Cheers. Oh my gosh, can you reach with the clink?
There we go.
That sounded cool. I like the distant sound there.
Yeah, here, cheers to our guests.
Yeah, you should do some like old school like radio theater with you'd have people doing sound effects in the corner, like when you talk about a horse running, and they just do the little like.
That's what I was picturing, like someone with little shoes, like tap dancing.
Oh, that'd be so good. The possibilities are endless.
Welcome to the Pray for Micah podcast.
You're gonna have to hire people now.
Do one of those. I don't know. Clown yobos or whatever they're called.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I'm like clown trombone. Like what is it? Yeah.
I don't know. I just know the
what do those look like? I don't know if I've seen those in person. I just I know the sound you're talking about, but I'm not sure if I've seen anybody master that instrument.
A 1940 something thing. Yeah.
Okay.
Some Orson Welles, War of the Worlds stuff.
I'll keep my eye out at thrift stores for you, Micah. This is something in your future, I can tell.
Absolutely. I mean, I've got the good recording equipment for it finally, so now might as well put it to good use.
I agree.
Might as well get some horse clopping sounds.
It has nothing to do with your podcast, and yet everything, like it becomes everything.
Well, you heard it here, everybody. You can reach out to me, prayformicapod@gmail.com. I will do your horse sound effects. Your horse clops sound.
It's so helpful.
I guess I could do it like Monty Python, where I get some coconuts, like.
Oh yeah, is that what they use? Coconuts
in the movie? They're just.
It is. Oh yeah, that's always a backup.
Yeah. Sarah, would you be willing to lead us today?
Yes.
I know it's a little hard shift there to a spiritual practice, but I just know that this is something that's near and dear to your heart, and so I want to jump into exploring the realms and worlds that you're involved in. But before, let's give folks a little taste. Me, I want a little centering opportunity to
that sounds good. I'm always up for that.
With our mimosas,
with our mimosas, right? I'm gonna set mine down just for the time being, knowing it's right here for when I need it. Okay. All right. And not such a hard turn really, because I think humor is also a really important like spiritual and centering practice. So
it's healing.
Yeah, it is healing. So I think it engages more of the body. Like we're engaging muscles in our abdominals through laughter. Like it's actually connecting us with our gut, I guess. And I think that can be really powerful. So maybe we've pre-activated ourselves, so we're ready for this next centering practice. So
all the chemicals are flying. I'm ready to channel it. That's good. Okay, great. So this will be fun because I guess those at home or wherever they are listening could do this with maybe not close their eyes if they're driving or something. Please, we do not recommend closing your eyes while you drive.
We do not recommend.
Take a deep breath for all the times you want to close your eyes.
That's good. It's a good trade out. Oh, I love it. Okay, Micah. So let's maybe begin by feet are grounded, or you're just comfortable, like something where you're not thinking so much about your posture, your position. Hands just in a comfortable place. And then close or rest the eyes. And we just begin by taking a few breaths just at your natural rhythm. Feeling into that interior space. And maybe noticing where this natural rhythm of your breath begins to fall in the body. I think for a lot of us that might be a little bit shallow, so we feel that gentle chest expansion on the inhale. But sometimes we can breathe a little bit more deeply and really feel our diaphragm expand, that solar plexus area at the base of our rib cage. And then maybe we can even invite that breath down a little bit deeper into the belly. So the belly expands on our inhale and a gentle contraction of the belly button toward the spine on the exhale. We're squeezing out the breath from our base. Just allowing that breath to flow as deeply as possible and inviting a little bit more air on the inhale, releasing a little bit more air on the exhale, slowing everything down. Imagine that we can slow down time or even pause time with our breath. And then maybe we focus on the rest of our body with the breath still flowing deeply. And then starting with the crown of the head, we begin to feel everything soften and let go. So moving down, then our forehead begins to smooth and our eyes, all those little muscles around our eyes begin to release. And our jaw begins to loosen, maybe causing the lips to part just slightly. And then that little bit of a melting sensation down the neck. We feel the shoulders fall naturally toward the earth. Feeling that down into our elbows and into our hands, noticing those little sensations in our fingers, often a sense of tingling or dancing of the energy in our palms and our fingertips. And then same thing down the length of our spine toward our base, toward our sits bones, our hips, wherever we're sitting. Our knees and our ankles and our feet, just feeling everything grounded as we notice not only our body, but the spaces between our legs and our fingertips, between our arms and our torso, that space around us. Still taking those deep breaths so that we can invite more of that sense of presence into our bodies. What is it like to live in this very moment, in this very space? We're aware of the sounds around us, the smells, the temperature, the texture. Feeling grounded and connected. Just enjoying this moment for what it is and allowing our breath to invite us to be with any tension or any discomfort we may feel, knowing it's okay just to be in this moment, be with whatever arises. Let's take a few more deep breaths. Deepest inhale yet. Deepest exhale. Maybe a couple more. Inhaling. Exhaling. And then one more. And then still feeling presence. Maybe this sense of calm, still this groundedness. We come back to this other reality with eyes open. Hopefully feeling a little bit more relaxed in here. Yeah, you feel it?
I'm feeling it. I feel that oxygenation.
Yes.
That blood flow.
Yeah.
And calming effect.
Isn't it kind of magical? What does it feel like, Micah?
Feels like being transported. Like you said, it was a good energy, the laughing, everything we were doing, lots of endorphins, and then just like settling into that deeper. Like I appreciate you making that connection of humor into contemplative space, and then just feeling that transportation of just release. Like just like you, like when you were talking, like I can feel. I don't know. I mean, maybe I'm a visual learner, and so what you're talking through, and you're saying to relax your shoulders, like I'm picturing that in my head.
Yes,
I feel that in my girth. No,
yes,
I'm just like resting. You're like feel the plantedness of your feet into the earth, and being present and being here is such a hard task to do in a world where it's fighting for our attention,
right? And
then. Sometimes when I'm with a group of friends, I'm like, can we just like take a breath with each other? Just like center.
Amazing.
I don't do that, but there's just times where it's like, there's so much going on, a lot of stimulation. Can we just like center our energy real quick?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. I find myself daydreaming sometimes about, what if I could pause time just for a minute, just to take a few breaths for myself?
Yeah.
Or, if there's a lot of deadlines sometimes just to catch up with stuff. But a lot of times it's just that pause for a deep breath, not only to like catch my breath, but also in moments that feel like I just want to pause time because it's so magical and so rare to find that like special moment with friends often, or in nature where I just wish I could live there forever. In that moment. Yeah.
Growing up, being a Bible believing Christian, there are times where I still, like, people ask me, other than moments of crisis, like, do I still pray? And the wiring in my brain definitely is still there where it's like, some shit happened. Oh, Lord Jesus, help me. Let me just, it's like, if you, slip on some ice or something,
Yeah. Oh, yes.
You're just like, suddenly no one's an atheist, like, it's like, oh, wait, there's a crisis happening. But for me, when I take deep breaths and I center myself, I feel like I connect to not the same God of like my childhood, if that makes sense. It's not like I would pray and I just kind of picture this person in my head. But there was times even when I was younger where it just felt like, this more nebulous energy is in my head that's like surrounding me and infiltrating me, kind of like waves,
Oh, yeah.
And so when I do practices like this, thanks again for leading that with us. It was beautiful.
Always.
Just being able to see that as a form of prayer, as redefining prayer for me now. Like, and so even now, like family will be like asking me like, do you still talk to God? I'm like, in my own way. Yeah. It's less of a, hey, I'm going through these things. Can you help me? It's more of a, I sit and reflect on those things I'm going through. And I kind of almost the same kind of way, the same kind of model of offering up the things I'm anxious about and my thoughts and putting them at the forefront of my mind and then just like breathing through, letting them rest, just kind of let it move through me kind of thing instead of holding on to like the anxiety of whatever it is I'm stressed about or angry about, just kind of leaning into it. And that prayer changes my I mean, I know this, you probably could talk more about the science behind the neurological pathways and how, how it's rewiring our brains to like literally recenter us. So my therapist helps me with that too.
I know, all tools. But that's okay. That's an amazing shift, I think, that you just described, from moving to that. By the way, I really feel that whole like prayer, like the slipping on the ice, like you said, the Lord, the only time I think or say the word Lord is when I'm in like a desperate, like, get me out of this situation. Right. I lost my credit card. Help me find this.
Lordy.
Lord, please. And I'm like, whoa, where did that come from? Because it's just so foreign to where I am now. But okay, what caused that shift in you, Micah? Like what caused that shift from seeing this Lord Jesus thing as prayer into like, I can take a deep breath and that is prayer to me? More authentic is what I heard. A more authentic prayer.
I mean, if you even want to just look at examples Jesus gave us, like he went up into the mountain by himself, to pray. Yeah. And we all have some kind of definition handed to us by the church. But to me, it's like you said, like it's those moments where just shifting the perspective of, hey, I need to go to an altar and sacrifice an animal. Not that I ever did that, but okay, I'm really anxious about this shit.
Worried about your dog?
Give me a pigeon. Yeah, everybody is sincerely worried about Puma and Rayla now. Don't worry, I won't sacrifice them unless it's the apocalypse. I need to eat something.
Oh my God. I love it.
And let's be real, Puma will be the first one I eat. Like I love Rayla. I've had enough.
Oh yeah, I mean firstborn, I guess, kind of thing, right?
Yeah,
you had Rayla before Puma. Okay,
right. Yeah.
I mean, it just makes sense.
Just better meat.
Just better meat, younger, more tender.
This took a turn, a real dark turn. Sorry, everybody. We're going from a very spiritual practice.
We're going like Old Testament here.
Old Testament. So yeah, I kind of did away with the whole sacrificing lambs and stuff for my penance or intro into the divine space. Yeah. Because that's what the whole separation was. I think Jesus was trying to get rid of. Like, hey, God, the kingdom of God lives in all of us. Yeah. And we don't need this mediator temple thing to experience the divine. And so I don't know when that shift happened. I think just slowly. I mean, some of it in college was even just appreciating some of the old high church stuff of things like the Eucharist and the sacraments that were less about, I have this laundry list I need to come to God with and process what I'm praying for my family, and more like seeing a practice of itself, like embodiment of the prayer is like a form of connection to the divine. And so more like a slow transition. And then I've struggled because it's like, there's always that deep in kind of internal pull to want to when I get in that space to want to envision a deity, envision a thing that I'm a sky god that I'm directing my energy and thoughts towards, and just kind of feeling more fulfilled when I step away from that imagery and just picture the essence of it all within all kind of thing.
Yeah, so, that's beautiful.
Yeah. It's a practice.
Amazing.
And speaking of practices.
Yes.
So
everything is practice.
Yeah, everything's practice. But you specifically love to work in like three main arenas. So your art, kind of spiritual direction, and yoga. Yeah. And so, and I know you see these as like three distinct bodies of work, so to speak, that you can like delve into. A whole history, I'm sure, and knowledge behind each one. But where do you see the intersecting of these things in the work that you do for yourself and with others that you? Yeah,
that's such a good question. And actually, I think ties in really beautifully to how like your transitioning understanding of God being that integration.
Yes.
And so I guess, so I mean, maybe an obvious answer for me anyway is those three practices feel like, I mean, they're all spiritual practices to me to some degree, and not necessarily, I'm not saying like tied to the Christian tradition, but just this expression of connecting to something divine, both beyond me and within me. And so I feel it's sort of this, I don't know. Let me give you an example. That might be the easiest way to do it. So also, the one that comes to mind, which is kind of funny, is art. So I studied fiber arts at Mizzou and like I loved
Tigers.
it. I was such a huge sports fan as an art kid. I wasn't at all.
I was going to say, I was like, I never watched sports, but you know, for our Mizzou fans on here.
Yeah. Very much. I like when people talk about college sports, I get so confused. I mean, sports in general, it just, you know, sports ball doesn't really speak to me, but I really like food though and good drinks. And that sometimes is a part of consuming sports, and I do enjoy that part. That's anyway, true. we digress there. Go Tigers. Funny enough, tiger has become such a sacred creature to me.
Really?
So yeah, that's actually my primary like form of God is a tiger. Totally unrelated to MU because I think I don't know. That's weird. Now that's in my head. I'm like,
yeah. Forget
mascot.
MU. Just picture a tiger, you know, now in our head.
Yeah, exactly.
Bengal tiger. Yeah.
Yes. Something. Oh, they're so beautiful. I mean, wow. Okay, so art.
Yeah.
Right. So I studied fiber arts, and I think like at the time that I needed something to do with my hands. College was a really hard time for me, health-wise and mental health and all of it. And so I never thought I would pursue art. I enjoyed it in high school. I ended up just needing to pick something to be able to like graduate and survive. Found the Fibers program, which was just like, I mean, I was always standing in like 3 to 4 inches of water, just using like, you know, we were pulling paper, you know, making handmade paper out of like fibers that we would forage in the fields. And that was cool. Nice alliteration.
Yeah.
So I loved that hands-on thing. But then, you know, when I graduated and didn't have that studio space that I could make that mess, it eventually transitioned and has really picked up these last couple years with lockdown actually into watercolor painting. I took one painting class. I did some drawing stuff post-college, like mainly just pen and ink. And then I was just telling someone this the other day. I sort of inherited from a friend whose parents were transitioning into assisted living. This friend's dad was an artist, and so I inherited all these old school watercolors. And I'm like, someday I'll just like play around with those. Anyway, last year kind of activated that. And I thought, you know, I'd been working in conservation for a couple years, and I was a total hack in that. I didn't have any science background related to conservation, but I did love it. I actually found, I mean, it just deepened my connection to nature, I guess, and to wildlife and animals. So I started just painting Missouri wildlife because I'm like, you know, people don't appreciate Missouri's wildlife enough. Like, this is an amazing ecosystem we live in, and we're always looking beyond, I think, because it's not maybe as striking as the mountains or the ocean.
Sure.
So I started painting some of those things just to capture, like just from photographs. I'm essentially trying to copy this photograph into watercolor. And I found that just by trying to mix paints to make the exact color of like let's say a female cardinal, really subtle but beautiful colors, lots of reds and tans and like a little bit of gold and the right light, and then that bright orange of the beak that's such a stark contrast, and then their eyes, right? Like it's we think of it as sort of black when we see it, but I mean it's a series of, I mean it reflects everything, so often blues and yellows and greens in a tiny little I don't know, like maybe something the size of like a pencil eraser. And that would be on the big size of like what I paint as far as like a cardinal's eyeball goes. But I might use like 20 some colors just in that little tiny eye. And I think it gave me the sense of like a connection to the divine nature of that being, that it could be so many colors there, and just to capture that. So this is like the longest answer to your question, Mica.
I'm on the road.
You're on the journey. Road. Okay, good.
We're rolling.
We are.
I love it.
Yeah.
And the fact that it takes so many colors, like just what a practice, just to be able to, like, I want to get this eye right.
I want to get this eye right. Yeah. And it's going to sometimes take me over an hour to paint this tiny, tiny thing because I want to get it just right. I mean, practice has made that happen a little bit more quickly for some creatures anyway. But, you know, so now I do a lot of like pet portraits, commissions of just like sacred animals for other people, whether they're known animals like Rayla or Pumbaa. Puma?
Yeah. Pumbaa, yeah.
Pumbaa, yes,
like
of
Lion
course.
King.
Yes, okay. I was like Pumbaa or like Puma. Anyway,
I almost
Pumbaa.
so that's what's funny is I originally was calling him Puma because like the cat, the big cat, and a friend thought I said Pumbaa, and I was like, I kind of like the silliness of that. It's less hit on the right on the nose with Puma,
and less pressure on the cat to be like so
athletic. I gotta be this big cat, right?
This,
I'm a descendant of these things,
Let's put a B in there.
It's like calling Rayla Wolf, It's like, okay, all right,
yeah, sort of, kind of, but also like just the goofiest creature to ever walk the planet. Yeah. So anyway, like look how meaningful these animals are to you, and their very nature, and it's not only them, but it's like their relationship to you. So if someone reaches out to me and wants me to paint especially a pet that's recently passed, or that's like a really sacred task to me, and it involves spiritual direction, because I want to know their relationship to this animal, and I want to know some things, not just because like I think if I know some things about the creature, it will make a better painting, although I do think it does, because then I feel more of an emotional connection. But I think it's a practice of someone being able to like tell about what this creature means to them or meant to them, what continues to mean to them. There's really no past tense of that, I think, even when the pet is gone. And so I think that involves that maybe less so on the yoga front, but I mean, when we were talking about like deep breaths and just connecting to our bodies and our relationship to something else, why would you commission something to be painted unless it was deeply meaningful to you? And I take that honor really seriously, and I try to keep it accessible price-wise so that most people can have like access to that, because I do think that's such a special thing. So yeah, I don't know, these things just weave together so naturally to me, and it's probably because that braid of practices has led to such great healing in my own life. So to be able to be trusted with that in other people's lives and with their bodies and with their sacred creatures, like I don't know, it's such a joy, even though I will share with everybody listening, it's not what pays the bills. I have like jobs outside of this, but yeah.
Sure. Mm-hmm. But I looked at some of your artwork. I mean, I follow you on Instagram and stuff. Uh-huh. What's your handle again? Is it Sarah?
Oh, at Sarah Pickrell.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You can go on there and check out beautiful portraits though. Mm-hmm. And then some of the birds.
Thanks.
And I appreciate what you said, like just trying to capture some of the nature and wildlife of Missouri. Cause like you said, such an underrated, region, as far as like
there's a lot going on
natural
here.
Beauty. Have you ever heard of Papas?
Oh my God, I love Papas.
I mean, it's not just Missouri. It's this kind of whatever Midwest area. But I'm like, what? There's like basically a mango type fruit that just grows.
Mango banana.
That just grows in Missouri that you can just find.
And it's a beautiful tree. Like it's really kind of spindly, and it's got these big lime green leaves, and I've only been out into the forest once to find like the fruit at its ripest and been able to access it because they're kind of tall. So
right,
man, that's such a, you love pawpaw? Because some people hate the texture. My friend Ashley, who I'm sure will listen to this, she just like spit it out of her mouth. She couldn't stand it.
Ashley, pawpaw. I'm just gonna trigger you with the word pawpaw. Pawpaw, Ashley, eat it. Eat your pawpaws.
Well, Ashley Pear. It's her. Yeah. Just gonna throw her under the bus. Hates the pawpaw.
She hates them.
She knows what she likes, and it's not a pawpaw.
When I was living at Cherith Brook, we had two, I think they still have them, two pawpaw trees. And so that was the first time I ever tried it.
Yeah.
It was, Erica's all about trying to get some natural or native plants in the space. And I liked it. Other people were not jiving with it. It kind of has a slimy kind of.
Oh, yeah. Oh, no, it's not just Ashley. Okay.
Yeah. I understand why people would be. And, I know enough about plants, but not enough to like confidently go pick it out in the wild to eat.
Yes. Fair.
I'm worried I'll be the person who's like, yeah, is that a pawpaw? Can I eat that?
And you eat like
it's a very obvious
death
plant.
mushroom or something.
Yeah. Like,
if you're like Mica, that doesn't look anything like a pawpaw.
And thus passes Micah, thinking he was eating a pawpaw, and he ended up eating a whole shroom of something. hey, if it puts me on a psychedelic trip, that's one thing. But if
that would be cool. But yeah, I'm
too scared. I watched Into the Wild.
Me too. That's immediately what wasn't it like berries or something? That was just heartbreaking.
May he rest in peace.
Yeah, no doubt.
I didn't read the book, but the movie was really good.
Yeah, that's like, I'm famous for being like, I love that story. And they're like, oh, what'd you think of the book compared to the movie? I'm like, oh, I don't read that much.
I mean, I'm that snob when it comes to like, Lord of the Rings and some of these things. But most of the time I'm like, no one likes a person who's like, but did you read the book? Like, I understand your intentions and they're good intentions.
Oh
but
my gosh.
You person just settle down. I understand.
I am 100% that person on like the 5 books that I've read that have been turned into movies. And that does not include Lord of the Rings or Harry Potter, which is highly offensive to some people.
Yeah, right.
I'm like, listen, Harry Potter, like the 4th book, I was in the middle of the 4th book when I got my driver's license, and it was just a rough time to continue reading books at that stage in my life.
Well, I wasn't allowed to read them growing up because they were full of witches and witchcraft, you know. So right. I was like a 20-something-year-old whenever by the time I read it. Actually, I'll share a funny story.
Please.
You want to pray for Micah's story?
Yes.
Here's our pray for Micah's story.
Oh yeah, time for a pray for Micah story.
Pray for Micah's story time. So I'm like 21 years old at this time, in community college, working a full-time job, so still living at home, and finally just decided, I've watched a lot of the Harry Potter movies. I was like, it's just time I buy these books.
Yeah.
And so I buy the whole collection, hardback, online, and I'm like very nervous about them coming to my parents' house, because my mom was really convinced that these were like had actual spells in them. Like, I love my mom, but she for the longest time thought, Spider-Man was a demon or something. Like she just didn't know like the world of the toys. Just like the boys' toys section looks so scary. Like just like all these weird looking monster looking creatures. Mm-hmm. So, it was just, Harry Potter is witchcraft. Naturally that's wrong and evil. And so I'm like at work, and it's like a Saturday, and I'm like texting my brother. I'm like, hey, if a box comes in, just like put it in my room real quick. Like trying to be as discreet about this as possible. Yes. And I'm thinking it's going to be a big box, but it's probably just going to have some label on it, generic thing, for Mica or something.
It did not, I can tell.
And I get home, and my mom's like, Mica, we need to have a conversation. She takes me back, points at this box, and like huge lettering, like across the whole box, like, a couple feet wide, Harry Potter book set 1 through 8. She's like, what is that? And I was just like, I have no idea. I was just like,
what is that, Mom?
I think I ordered some clothes. They just had to put it in a different box.
Just a random
Mike,
box.
I'm going to get a knife and I cut that box open. If there's Harry Potter books in there.
God.
Okay, all right. There's Harry Potter. How could you bring those demons into our house?
Oh, no. Oh, my God.
It was a beautiful moment. She was fine with it. She was just like, we're having Bible study tonight. Yeah. Just, please make sure they're put away.
Hide the contraband.
Hide the contraband.
I don't want my friends to see this about my own flesh and blood.
21 years old. Still not sure if I'm allowed to read Harry Potter.
My gosh. And I just love that you had... Yeah, hashtag pray for Mica indeed. Yeah, for your soul, for sure. That garbage you just put into your body and your brain. But you were 21 and you had cash, and you, instead of buying like cases of beer, you bought a box set of Harry Potter
It was expensive
books.
Too at that.
No
it was
doubt.
Like, it was like
and they were probably, were they hardback? Or?
They were hardback. They actually came in this cool Harry Potter trunk thing.
Yeah. Oh, do you still have? You pointed over there.
Yeah, it's out
we're
there.
gonna have to see that later. I would love to see that.
You open up the treasure trunk, and there's all the books.
That's amazing. Oh,
yeah,
I love that.
Yeah. No offense, Mom. I know she's gonna listen to this.
Yeah.
Parents try to do the best they can, and when you think that there's a thing that has like weird witchcraft in it, like that seems weird, and you don't know about it. But we also had to wrestle with Star Wars and like, is the Force good or bad? And
exactly,
just kind of like The answer is it's all kind of the same storyline.
Yes.
Luke Skywalker is Harry Potter.
Is Jesus?
Is Jesus?
Oh? No, question mark?
Question mark? Dies for. Is killed by Voldemort.
Yes.
For our sins.
Yeah. I mean, what a brilliant adaptation of, I think, a familiar story. I don't know. I love it. Yeah. I'm into it.
Yeah, I know there's a lot of people who are really mad at J.K. Rowling for being kind of transphobic. We don't like that. Yeah. We don't support that. And, you know, if you're a millennial, it's a good chance you read those books and liked them. But I'm like, I mean, we were talking about even C.S. Lewis earlier. Like, yeah, I can appreciate the work for what it was when I read it, you know.
Right.
But yeah, maybe all the worldview behind that work is no longer relevant to me now.
Yes.
And yeah, C.S. Lewis, you know, they're old English people, so they're probably sexist, probably racist, you know, Tolkien, you know.
Yeah.
But the whole thing, what I appreciate, what I've even been seeing lately, because there's a lot of, excuse me, that's what happens when you drink mimosas. You know,
oh my, the bubbles just in there. Just burp into the mic. That's going to be some ASMR that we need in our lives.
But the whole, like, everybody's mad right now. Not everybody, but all the racists on the internet are mad at Lord of the Rings because they're, like, having, like, black characters and casting these roles. And it's like, yeah, I saw someone just put it the best on. They were just talking about how, while these people may have created these worlds, it no longer belongs to them, to Tolkien and C.S. Lewis or J.K. Rowling.
Well said.
And now it's like, it's become such a, massive world to appreciate that's now had by all kind of thing. And so when they do the remake of Harry Potter,
exactly,
because we're not far. I mean, it's already been 20 years.
It has, and I
first
just
movie came out.
Loved that reunion special. Did you watch it?
I didn't watch it. No,
I highly recommend it. It was just, Nick was just like, oh my gosh, why are you freaking out about this so much? But like the second it came out, New Year's Day, I was all about it.
Yeah. I just know, like, when we remake it in the future, maybe we'll be more inclusive with our role casting and less character, you know, stereotyping with like whatever it was, you know, the Chinese gal and these, you know, some of these people who play these roles.
It's true. Whoops, forgot I had that on. Just scratch back here. And I think like even Hermione being the sort of like book smart, prudish girl character. I mean, she was like a badass too, but also, yeah, you're right. It's like these stories invite us into a new way of understanding, I think, ourselves and seeing the world, and they're incomplete. It's I mean, that feels like a really an amazing way for me. That's how I see the Bible now too, is this understanding of like these are some amazing stories, and it's important to listen to the voices beyond that, that carry sacred stories, because it's how can one book carry everything?
Right.
And yeah, I mean, I think I read a huge shift in God and in Jesus, and certainly in my own understanding now of how that shift happened throughout all the books of the Bible. But I mean, these are people writing these stories, and they're capturing their understanding of God.
Yes. And
it shifted so greatly that I think it's actually given me a lot of freedom to understand my own shift and embrace my own shift of who God is. You said something earlier, Micah. I think it was just that comment of like the prayer being to Lord Jesus, now to being more about like breath and something that's just doesn't involve words, is what I heard.
Yes.
And I know in my like my spiritual direction training program, it's called Sojourners. We had, I forget who it was. It may have been sister. No, she's not a sister. She's a former sister, Lucy Abbott Tucker. She came and spoke a few times. I want to give her credit. I'm not sure if that's accurate, but
what a good name though.
Oh,
Lucy
isn't it great?
Abbott Tucker.
Lucy Abbott Tucker. She's badass. She's awesome. I love her to death. Incredible. Very influential spiritual director in the U.S. anyway. She talked about the transition of a lot of folks from understanding as a child, and a lot of people I think still have this. I think this is our dominant culture understanding of God, God as magician. So we start with God as magician, like grant me these, like favor God is what Nick and I jokingly refer about. So, you know, if the Kansas City football team is playing, it's like pray to favor God for a win,
right?
You know?
Yeah.
But yeah, God is magician, God granting favors, working magic. It's a fine understanding of God. Sure. Like that's a fine, it's just fine.
It's fine.
I think.
If that works for you.
Yeah, I think can be damaging, but we'll just say it's fine. And then the shift from God as magician to God as friend or companion, which is kind of a beautiful shift. And I think the sort of evangelical church really sort of peddles this God, I'll say white evangelical church, because that's just the context I come from, but like peddles this kind of God as companion or friend, which I think, you know, speaking of C.S. Lewis, that like Lucy Aslan relationship is like a really beautiful characterization of that, that God understands and knows us deeply, and that we can connect with God on this personal level. I think the harmful side effect to that, and we see this in systemic oppression, is this hyper focus on individual action and individual sin as opposed to collective action, collective sin.
Yes.
And so it absolves us a little bit. And it's also like a really great vehicle. And by great, I mean terrible, but like vehicle of shame, because like God is sort of big brother as magician a little bit, but also as friend, because God sees and we must repent to this God that we've wronged so deeply.
Right.
Anyway, it's an important transition, but a lot of us, I think, stop there. And then I wish I could remember her third designation, but it's sort of like what you were expressing. And I guess it's just this God as sort of this mysterious divine that is within and beyond and among, and this sense that, I can't fully know God, but like I'm also like so deeply connected to God that it always leaves that sense of mystery. But it also is like the space literally between you and me is God, like this air here and the air that's entering your lungs. And so if you are to breathe into that awareness, how can that not be prayer? Like how beautiful is that?
Yes.
How can that not be prayer? Because you are made of God essence, just as I am, and Rayla is, right?
Yeah.
Pumbaa. Like there's something in us, and it doesn't flatten. I sometimes people think that flattens like human importance or something. I'm like, no, it makes everything that much more
elevates
important.
everything.
It
right.
elevates everything.
Absolutely.
And that's why fighting and dismantling systemic oppression, racism, sexism, homophobia, xenophobia, all the isms and the phobias, like that is holy, sacred work, because that is bringing the truth of God in and among and around, like into reality, into this moment. And I don't know, that's what keeps me spiritual. I think that's what keeps me in these practices, because they ground me in that. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
That was literally going to be one of the questions I was going to ask you.
Good. I'm glad I prompted you.
Yeah. How do you use these spiritual practices as forms of resistance to racial and communal injustices? Yeah,
that's a great question. And not like a natural connection always, because these things can, I mean, I will say like the title of artist and spiritual director and yoga instructor, teacher, practitioner, whatever that is, tend to elevate oneself. And especially when they get tied up with money and capitalism.
That's
and the
everything.
Ways
to, that's what
monetize it.
The social unfortunate thing everything unfortunately goes down to money. Yeah,
it does. So it's, it's it doesn't naturally like draw me into those, I guess, resistance spaces. Revolution spaces. However, I think it probably helps that they don't give me a lot of money, so that can't be necessarily the focus. It really is nice to have a steady paycheck. And I will say in a field that like in work that still inspires me and doesn't like compromise this stuff. That's also a fine line.
But I think like even like just to interject for a second, like the most underpaid fields are usually in the arts, so that's the whole capitalistic thing too, is like we prioritize these whatever has the most efficient output,
yes.
the most maximized distribution to the most amount of people. Yeah. And so, yes, on the one hand, it's developing the inner person that's specific to these art practices that you're working in. And so, we always undersell ourselves as artists because that's what the world tells us to do. They're like, oh, you should be doing this barely above free.
Yes.
Like, no, you should be good. And unfortunately, I'm not paying you to be here, so no.
Hey,
you get mimosa payments.
Oh my gosh! And I think I don't know, just amazing conversation with a friend is that. Yeah. That is there's like another.
But if I had the money, I would be absolutely.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, doing that. Just I don't know. I just think like people. Yeah, unfortunately, we live in a world where we need currency to be able to trade for foods and services.
Right.
And that's just the unfortunate situation we're in. And
it is.
If I could give you all the money, all my artist friends.
Yeah.
And all I can really do is just encourage my friends who are like, well, I'm thinking about getting this job or they pay me this money. And I'm like, do you want to make more than that?
Yeah.
And that's like unfortunate thing, but like, don't make them make you settle just because it's whatever, a good cause and you're just a graphic designer. Right. Like, no, you're not just a designer. Like that's your profession. That's your skill set. Like take yourself, seriously.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh my gosh. And isn't that like a whole other podcast episode? I'm guessing like this just idea of like, why do we think we're worth less than we are, or what we have is sort of this, like if it's creative in its nature or it's something that's more like qualitative than quantitative, that's somehow then we get paid qualitatively. Right. Like my mortgage doesn't accept qualitative payment. It's real hard money.
My taxes does not feel goods.
No. Oh my gosh. Wouldn't that be so, if I'm like, listen, I'm a spiritual director and I could help you explore the inner workings of your being. Like, could I give you a few of those sessions and you can chop some money off the top?
Do my taxes for me. Yeah. Pay my property taxes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. That's not, I mean, oh gosh, I would love to explore alternate economies, but like, this is the one we live in. And anyway, I think the sense of, so the funny thing about art and yoga and spiritual direction is it comes at a great cost it comes at a great cost to me, providing a meaningful practice for others, or in the case of art, I guess, product for others. If I don't connect fully with myself in those practices, if that makes sense. So if I'm sitting with you and you're a directee, and if people don't know what spiritual direction is, it can look like traditional therapy. I guess on the outside, you're like sitting one-on-one with someone, but it's not clinical, and it's not the same education path, right? Sure. So not to claim that it is, but it's the sense of like really deep listening to what's going on in you, reflecting back to you what that is. I am sort of guide and facilitator occasionally, but more like space maker and holder for the work that you're already doing and exploring. So that requires me to be really mindful that I am tending to my own stuff.
Yes.
So that I can create the space for another, not project on you what I think you might be going through. My favorite thing in spiritual direction with someone is when I'm so surprised at their response. I ask a question, maybe I'm kind of baiting them because I'm like, oh, I think I know this is what's happening. And then they say something fully opposite, or they say, no, that's not right, when I try to like sort of repeat back to them or summarize what they've said. And that is such a joy. Like you'd think it'd be rejection or like, oh God, I'm bad at this. But I'm almost like, oh, this is amazing because you know yourself, that you were able to share that, express that. And I don't know you, and I'm continuously, I don't know what the word is there, humbled by that experience. And I love that. And I guess to get back to your original question, like that act of resistance, I just think there's like such an inherent connection between the inner work and the outer work.
Yes.
We tend to sometimes hyper focus on the inner work, and let's look at like anti-racism. Like we see a lot of white communities trying to educate the racism out of themselves. And we know that doesn't work because racism is still very much active and at play in our world. So like I think that connection to mind and body and experiencing that in an authentic way, not in a consuming, I'm just trying to learn my way out of this, but really feeling in like, what is going on inside of me? That work I think always has some payoff. I remember like when I was in yoga teacher training, I can't remember why I sought this out, but I think I was interested in this connection between yoga and social movement. Also, like a little like side note I want to plug in here is like I am a white, able-bodied, like I kind of fit the sort of designation of what a yoga teacher looks like in America. And so like always wanting to be aware of that. And it's probably why I'm trying to seek to make sure I know and honor the roots of yoga, both like the Indian roots of yoga and the roots that tie back to, Kemetic yoga, Egyptian yoga. So like Black roots of yoga in that sense. So always trying to like be aware of that and like who I am in that space. And that's going to be a lifetime thing, I think, because it's really hard to know that. I mean, you and I, before this conversation started, we're talking about gentrification and owning property, I guess, owning houses as like white people in the city, like just the complexities of that. Yeah. Anyway, all that to say, like, I started reading about yoga as a practice of like social resistance, and the Occupy movement came up in my searching. And I learned that, in New York, Occupy Wall Street, like there was some tension in the camps because it was such a big encampment of people, that they noticed some of the like things started to separate as a sort of a reflection of society. So you'd have like the white folks over here, the Black folks over here, Latinx, that there were some like classes divides as well. So just people finding one another as kind of that lunch table vibe, like high school lunch table thing. At least at Liberty High School, that was very much like, ooh, you found your people, so to speak. And I guess like the organizers or some of the people there started to notice this and started incorporating yoga practice, both, the physical and the breath work, the meditation to draw people together and recenter themselves in sort of the task at hand in the work to recharge. And I remember thinking like, that is fucking, can I cuss on this?
You can cuss. Great. Fucking amazing. Yeah.
That was fucking powerful. Like that was so cool to realize that this isn't exercise. I really, at least for myself, like I have to resist that anytime. I mean, I'm prone to seeing yoga as exercise because it can have like certain styles of yoga asana, or the movement has
hot
yoga, like tremendous health benefits.
Yeah,
absolutely. But looking at the way that it can disarm ourselves and something that we can do in community, it's really like the ritual and practices of church, when you get them down to the place where they are actually meaningful. And I know we've both experienced some of those practices very, at least for ourselves, like void of that meaning, or kind of off course of what they were initially intended to do. Actually, maybe I take that back. They may be working exactly in the ways they're intended to.
Probably
depends on what the outcome. Yeah, but if you're trying to keep your church doors open and money in the seats, then those probably work really well, actually. But I think that's been that ritual, that practice communally can be amazing, even though like a home practice, let's say when you're doing things by yourself, like you were talking about yoga with Adrian, like how that works in your body. Imagine you like the way it feels in your body to do that. But why would you do 2 in one day if it wasn't this like recentering rhythm for your day? Maybe you're just like, 2 workouts in one day, but I kind of doubt that for you. Huh?
Yeah, no. There's days where I'm trying to do a more aggressive one because I want to work out. Yeah. Other times it's like, I just feel like a pent up tension. Yeah. And I just need to breathe,
like release it.
It's also just like, I'm trying to build some new habits because, I have a ongoing struggling battle with smoking. And so what tends to be the triggering thing is I'm stressed out. I'm going to take a breather.
Yeah.
And it's so counterintuitive. It's so opposite.
Yes.
Like, let me go kill my lungs
Yeah.
And so for me, the last couple of months have really helped just my lungs feel better because I'm actually practicing breathing instead of, I might have a smoke break after the yoga, but at least I did the yoga first.
My gosh. Can I ask you a question about that, Micah?
Yeah.
Okay. Just because these are words that I also use, like you use struggle and battle with smoking, right? Like, I think there will be a question here. Of course, I'm like, here's a question. Let me go into background about myself before I ask you the question. I think it's so a lot of my past, I used to say I struggled. I battled eating disorders, anorexia and bulimia for a long time, like 15 years in total. And I found a lot of freedom from that. But I've also found this like shift in myself that I'm like, I really don't want to say like struggle with that because it's someone else. It isn't my language. I just want to be clear. I just can't remember who to attribute this to, but someone told me about like an addiction or it was some habit, or I think it was an addictive behavior, compulsive behavior that they said instead of that they were struggling with, that they were in relationship with.
Yeah. Oh man, it sounds less shaming, like less negative connotation to it.
Yeah.
And there's just part of my mind that wants to resist. Because it is, you're right. It's an ongoing relationship I've had for 7 years. Like, yes. And to tell you the truth, I tell people, I'm like, if I could honestly smoke the rest of my life and not die from it, I would. Like, that's how much I enjoy it. Like,
doesn't it suck when it's like an enjoyable thing?
Like,
yeah.
I get it. There's going to be a day where maybe I'm on vacation, got the family, love of my life, or staring at an ocean view or whatever the view is. Yeah. And it could be the pinnacle of a beautiful moment. Yeah. And there'll always be an itch in the back of my mind that's like, you know what else make this just perfect? Just a cigarette in my hand. Let me just
like the deepest
let
breath.
Me just take the. Yeah. That's also just how strong that chemical is as an addiction.
It is. Yeah, truth.
So, but I appreciate what you're saying because, like, as like somebody who never is motivated by shame, but somehow always falls into patterns of like trying to. Joke or shame myself out of some, eating healthy or like, no, like family and people shaming me for smoking cigarettes. Not my family's actually really interested, but someone's like, oh, gross. Like, I'm like, you know what that's doing to you? Like, no, I've never heard of cancer. What are you talking about? like you can't tell me anything I don't already know. Yes. What I already am thinking about. That's why I make a rule with friends. If we're smoking a cigarette, we never talk about quitting smoking cigarettes while we're smoking. Because I'm like, why ruin the cigarette moment?
Oh my gosh.
It's just some kind of weird self-guilt conscious thing that. Yeah. And to me, it's almost like the pattern that I see in my own life anyways is that it's like, okay, I do like the bad thing, I overdrink, not bad, but I overindulge in the thing. I overeat and I drink a lot. And then there's something that like, I don't know what to call it, but lack of better words, like the Monday effect where it's like, today's Monday. I had a bad weekend. I'm going to do good today.
Yes.
And there's something about the cycle that feels comforting and yet keeps you in that rhythm of addiction because you're telling yourself like, it's almost like I have to dirty the like Catholic slate just to get it washed away again kind of thing.
Yeah. Oh,
and so
interesting. Yeah.
I don't know how to explain it. Maybe I'm not saying like I smoke cigarettes because like I'm like, I want to be naughty today. I'm just going to be naughty.
Yes.
But it's like there's a pattern to lifting yourself up to fall back down.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
And so I don't know. I even saw something the other day that was somebody was talking about like why we have these failed patterns of behavior. Like, oh, I want to be a good runner.
Yeah.
So for example, and what they basically said was it basically to really truly adopt a new practice in your life, you have to find a way to incorporate it as part of who you are as your identity. It can't just be, an extra hobby thing you're going to do. So if you're going to be a runner, that means you're going to buy running shoes.
Yes.
You're going to buy the comfortable running clothes. You're going to make some runner friends, and then you'll be the person I'll never hang out with because you've become a runner.
I was just thinking that, I don't know about this person.
I don't know about this person. But the truth is, like, that person is a runner now. And they spend hours working on their playlists to keep them in the runner jive.
Yeah, they sign up for something, some competition that... Yeah,
right. They put
but
a goal.
It can't be a 5K because that's like basic now. You've got to make it like half marathon.
Right.
I'm a little jealous of runners, to be honest, because I think they're pretty impressive. But I also don't want to be one. I don't know why I get jealous of that.
Yeah, I mean, it hurts my knees too much, you know.
Yeah.
But
agreed.
All I'm saying, if running's your thing, awesome.
I know. Just know I'm jealous of you.
Yeah. But at the same time, like, so I don't know, just when I was watching that, I was thinking about my life, like, like technically nicotine is out of your system in 3 days. And then from that point on, it becomes a mental battle. It becomes and so this part of the struggle is letting go of some old identity that's wrapped up into needing this to solve my problem this moment, needing it to fill some kind of, emotional support.
Right.
I don't know. I tell people I'm just an overgrown baby. I need my pacifier. I have an oral fixation, you know. So I'm not saying it's that simple. Like, just make it part of your identity to get over your eating disorder. That's not what I'm trying to say. Like, they're a real lived experience, and everyone's experience is different, unique to what they're working with, working on.
Yeah.
But share some more of your journey. Like, what do you feel like?
Yeah.
How does that connect with you? And like, honestly, thanks for sharing. Just I know it's a vulnerable thing to share about.
Yeah. Well, it's funny, like the identity stuff, I think really, thank you for sharing what you did too. I mean, well, it goes to show like, whatever your, addiction is, you know more science about it than anybody who's like, have you heard about the effects of smoking? You're like, I know nicotine's out of my system in 3 days.
Yeah.
Like the science of all this shit. Like
the
I know
smoker
this.
dies by 63. Like,
yeah,
you get it.
you know it. Yeah. And yet there's like, it's offering something really, really valuable. I mean, like when you speak, it's not just smoking then, it's like a connection to yourself.
Yeah.
It's almost, I don't know if this is controversial, but like a way to care for yourself by.
Yes. It's a toxic way to care for myself, but yes.
Toxic way.
It is my self-care. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I guess I relate to that deeply, and I don't want to conflate, we tend to talk about addiction or addictive behaviors, things like that, and wrap them all into one, similar to like talking about depression and anxiety in the same moment, but they're really different things. And not to do that because, I used to live with someone very near and dear to me who is a recovering alcoholic, and he would, we lived together kind of at the height of our addiction, I would say. So, I would have just, I call it slipped. I would just slip. I don't know if I love that language, but it's just something that I adopted during the initial days of recovery, my recovering journey. So that would be like a binge and a purge, okay, after a period of restriction. That was kind of the habit. And I know the brain science behind that, right? Like when you put your body into a starvation state, your brain doesn't really, that part of your brain doesn't really know that food is accessible and available at any time. It's kind of almost convincing your brain that you're in this, imagine living in the wild and you've killed an animal and you eat abundantly one day and then you go like a week without food or something like that. So you can kind of imagine that, right? Prepper, like you can imagine that scenario that you've got to be prepared for that. But so when you find food again, then you know you must eat abundantly because you don't know the next time you'll be able to eat. So anorexia tricks your brain into that state. And it flips on that survival switch. And so when I would encounter food, it would be like, which is, all the time, food is very accessible to me. I have money. I was living in a nice apartment. Food was accessible to me. And so when I would start to eat, my brain would flip into that like, oh, we must eat everything. And then to, quote unquote, fix that, that's when I would purge. So that was sort of like the rhythm of that. And I think the rhythm that's really familiar to a lot of people that are in relationship or have been in a relationship with eating disorders, or struggled with, if they prefer that language, because that's real. I mean, it does feel it's a struggling relationship. It's rarely a happy one. But yeah, that would happen. And then, you know, the person I was living with at the time was, it's one of those, like, I think it'd be fine if I shared it, but also don't have permission to share like the relationship with this person and all that. You know, he would be very, very drunk. And then I remember we'd just be in the kitchen together. We knew that we were both in our places, and we would just cry together and just be like, this fucking sucks. It's really hard. I don't want to live like this. And just, he'd be like, what happened? And I would tell him, like, in full detail, because I knew he would forget the next day because he was very drunk.
Wow.
But he wouldn't forget the feeling of it, right? So,
Sure.
And then he would tell me, and I would just be like, gosh, and we would just kind of like hold one another in that space. And I think that was so powerful and important, and was maybe one of the first examples I had of someone I could tell him anything. This is a family member, by the way. I could tell him anything, and he would just be a safe space for me and say, like, oh gosh, that sucks. Like, how did you want that to go? And I think that act of like love and permission to just be in the place that I was helped me, was a big part of the journey into health. I won't say mastery, like generally the addictive behaviors that emerge are a way to help treat the stuff that's beneath it, that's deep rooted, right? And yoga was a big part of that. That's initially when I picked up a yoga practice. I'm like, I have addictive gym behaviors. I can't go to a gym to do this. This is an unhealthy space for me. I need something though to move my body. I know I need that or I'm going to be crazy. And I was at the time, like, kind of going into this, recovery program. It was sort of a self-guided thing online. It was like Facebook for bulimics.
Oh, wow. Sure.
It was called the Bulimia Recovery Program, and it was awesome. I need to write this lady that started it in New Zealand. I need to write her a letter to just say how meaningful that was. Yeah. She had a few like very accessible practices, rhythms to develop rituals. And so I really found some great support there. Part of the assignment was to spend at least an hour a day in the community, I think is what she called it. So it was like a Facebook feed, but it would be people that would just post about like, gosh, I'm really struggling today. I slipped. I'm doing really well, like a variety of things. And then sort of the assignment was to comment on as many of those posts as possible, just to be like, oh, like, I'm thinking of you, hang in there. Like, you're doing a great job. I know today was tough. But I remember yesterday you posted that things were feeling a little bit more hopeful. That hasn't disappeared. It's still here. It's just that, today was a tough day and you had to do what you had to do. And I don't think I realized it at the time, but what she was offering, this woman that founded this program was offering, is that by commenting on other people's posts, I learned the language to speak to myself.
Wow. Like,
I was saying this to other people, but it was amazing how I learned the lines, the script of what to offer myself when I slipped or when I fell back into the old habits, even after like, a couple days, like with, being really, and again, quotes on this, good, was able to offer that to myself. So yeah, yoga was a way to reconnect with my body and find a fascination with my body, that when I would do a certain stretch, even just a downward dog, I'm like, oh my God, this muscle in my ankle, I can kind of feel it doing something in my knee, and I can feel it all the way up to my hip. And it was a way to understand my body that didn't involve mirrors or scale or any visual assessment. It was something like internal. And I think that was just like a huge gift. Anyway, I just rattled a whole bunch. I don't remember what you asked initially.
Oh, you're doing perfect. I appreciate everything you've shared, and thanks for, again, being open and sharing just your journey.
Yeah.
Kind of going through this.
Yeah.
I think, what's kind of resonating with me in this moment is just like, I don't know, we sometimes think of recovery as like this, okay, I'm going to go dissect myself somewhere and I'm going to find this root problem. Okay. This childhood trauma is what started this triggering event. And for some people, they're part of their journey. I'm not saying that that's not it, but versus sometimes just recognizing that, doing that deep work leads to just sometimes a simple moment of like, hey, I slipped today, and while there might be underlying issues that we're all delving with, I actually want to read a quote from your website. I really loved this.
That's awesome.
Not do such a bad segue, but it connects. You say, each of us is a complex universe of stories, emotions, and intimate truths. Spiritual direction is a practice that names all of this as sacred and makes space for whatever arises and invites us to trust ourselves, our bodies, and the divine within us. And so I just think, like, just thinking about each person as like, a world of a whole universe. Like, we just want to like look at, even like when I lived at Cherith Brook, when you have an addict who very clearly is strung out, has heroin addiction or meth addiction, and the world just wants to look at the outside as like this is your fault. You're a piece of shit. You should have solved it. You should have done something different. Yeah. Instead of realizing this person's a whole universe of moments and experiences that unfortunately has led them to this moment where they're completely lost, and they're so lost in their own addiction. There's no hope for anything else. So they just feed this, fuck the rest of the world. It's this one thing that I need now. Yeah. And the goal, I think, is to be there for each other in those intervening moments, to just be with each other. So I think that imagery with you and your friend, your family member being in that kitchen and just sitting with each other in that moment does, a world of miracles in us whenever we're being present with each other. And I think if we have more moments of connection like that, it leads to, it helps maybe intervene earlier before we get to some like drastic, isolated, lonely place where we're just pushing the rest of the world away and it's just me and my addiction now, and I don't want anything else. They actually did a study. I thought this was really interesting. If you'll bear with me for a minute.
Please. Yes. I love studies.
And my fact checkers will check it later on the podcast,
That's great.
My crew of fact checkers. So glad
you have that whole staff
Micah,
of
make
people.
Sure later on, Micah, future Micah, do some research now. I tell people I say things that might be accurate and factual, but you'll have to go do the research yourself.
That's an awesome disclaimer. Pray for Micah. Asterisk, like, may or may not be true things on this podcast.
Things on this may be pseudoscience. You have to go. Yes. You have to go look it up for yourself. But allegedly, from what I heard, once upon a time, they did a study. There's this original study where, you put I don't know if it was a mouse or a rat, but kind of lab rat kind of situation where they put it in a container with nothing but food and then water and then heroin water. And naturally, it does its business. It eats, it poops, it does, maybe it has a wheel. I can't remember it. Yeah. But it's enclosed and it's isolated. And sure, after a short period of time, it tries enough heroin water. It's next exclusively only drinking heroin water. Yeah. And it's not eating. It's not running. It's just doing the addiction. But then they redid the study because there was a lot of flaws. The new researchers felt like. Yeah. And so what they experimented was they had the same water, heroin water, but instead its cage had a whole network of tunnels that it could run around and go. And, oh, by the way, there's a female rat over in the other container. And so, eventually, there were some rats that still fell prey to just drinking heroin water. Yeah. But there was a higher percentage who would go have sex, have fun, play with its toys, run on the wheel, and then get tired or get dehydrated, go drink some normal water. And then, sometimes I'd go try a little heroin water. And it was just, I don't know, to me, it was just an interesting thing that what it was trying to highlight was like, what's a bigger indicator of your kind of a downward spiral into severe addiction was lack of community, was lack of access to other things to stimulate your brain to naturally release all those feel-good chemicals that you need.
Oh, wow.
Because at the end of the day, we're human beings, and our body promotes, like, hey, if you smoke this cigarette, it's going to release some endorphins.
Yeah.
You know, if you laugh with some friends, it's going to release some endorphins. Mm-hmm. And so naturally, if you're a person who has lost your job, had a divorce, lost your home, you're living in your car, and you have no access, you know,
right.
and you already have kind of been dabbling into some addictions, you know, then, you know, we just want to just do a blanket, you know, justification or assumption about people like, well, this is just all purely your fault. And it's like,
yeah, you had full choice. You chose this path.
Yeah. And like,
science doesn't support it.
Yeah. That basically, that there are people who, through series of events and circumstances, if they're cut off from their connections to people and community and a healthy rhythm, then inevitably you're going to go find that somewhere else. And it's just, again, and I appreciate what you said too. It's not, we can't just look at, anorexia, bulimia, or any of these things that folks are wrestling with. Again, sorry to use that language, but
no, that's, it's fine. I'm not trying to police the language at all.
Wrestling,
I'm just curious
struggle,
what resonates.
battling, but like, they're not all the same. They're not.
Yeah.
Everyone's journey is unique and different to them.
Right.
But it is, I think, critical, like you said, when you were there for your family member, that's what it reminded me of, just like, again, how forefront community is to help intervene on some of these earlier stages of whatever it is, depression, anxiety, you know.
Yeah, and like what you even shared, that study, and I'm just thinking about the reality of this, like how it just doesn't take long to fall into this, because I think we can all relate to feeling at some point or another, and probably in very recent history, like a lack of connection and community. And then I think what sounds really challenging about cigarettes, about alcohol, about any sort of drug, anything that's like a chemical release in the brain, which, I mean, you know, food is also a chemical release in the brain, but I feel like that can take over. I remember what's really freeing to me was learning that, like, as it relates to addiction and addictive compulsive behaviors, choice is an illusion. That was kind of part of this program, was like, and the illustration that has just stuck with me. Maybe I've shared this with you before, Mica, but it's this idea of addiction, or like the brain, the neural pathways being like a field. Imagine a prairie with tall grass, and you've walked the same path over and over again, like it's almost been mowed down. So if you're trying to get on one side of the field to the other, and you need to get there fast, like imagine that's part of the equation, which is, you know, the synapses of the brain, like things are firing, you're reacting to things. So of course you're going to take that path because there's no other way to go. Like that's it. Like you're trying to go there. That's been well carved out. And then someone says, you actually have to take a new path, and they give you a dull machete, and they're like, start whacking away. Like this is, which, anyway, my gutter brain right there, like 12-year-old brain. Anyway.
Whack it away, man. Just start whacking. You take that dull machete. Oh,
those things just like sometimes come out of my mouth, and I'm like, then my little like purity culture, like, oh my God. But yeah, like just carve out this new path. Like carve out this new path with this dull machete. And so you work diligently to do it, but then you get tired at some point. So like you kind of set it down. You're like, I just really need to get to the other side. So you go down the other thing. And I love that, because that's sort of that slip language I was talking about. I know that cold turkey is something people try, or just to remain like completely sober, and how many days sober. I personally don't prefer that, because I think it's sort of this, like, you know, it's almost that sign of like how many days someone wasn't injured on the job, and then, oh God, we've got to go back to zero. Like take your chips away, or your sort of recovery token.
Also my issues with AA, that kind of like, you've started from scratch now.
Yeah.
And it's that fall from grace kind of even church language.
It's like losing your virginity in the like sobriety world. Like, oh, you're unclean
Although
now.
I do hear you can pray and get that back.
Yeah, that's really nice. I feel like there's got to be like something you have to pay, some fee for that, processing fee for your restored virginity.
Your virginity is now restored. It is now sanctified before marriage.
Oh my God. That's what it feels. Yeah, oh God, it gets so weird. How did we ever think that was whatever? But yeah, that sense of that permission, I guess, to just be like, oh my gosh, there's a million instances in a day where I'm either engaging in the addictive thing or I'm not. And if, what's the number? Like 999,999 times I did not engage. And then I did this one instance, and that's when I like slipped or engaged in the behavior. How remarkable is that those other times I didn't. And I started to admire myself for like my machete work, knowing it was going to take time, but just, the brain, just like that field, that the longer, I worked with that machete in that new path, like they started to kind of even out. And so going down this other path felt like a little bit like, okay, yeah, that's something, but it's not my thing. Versus, eventually, the machete path started to become the pathway, and rewiring the brain kind of works like that. In this instance, I haven't studied how this works in other addictions, but I remember being like, oh yeah, this whole idea of personal choice is bullshit. It's bullshit. It doesn't make loving an addicted person easier, especially when we're talking about like some really like,
well, just choose your family over this heroin. Just choose them. Like, they would love to.
I would like to
Their
to
brain
have
literally
the choice.
cannot.
I would like to have like to have the choice. It's so true. And I think, not to conflate addiction and other things, but it's been easier for me to, I think, from this lived experience, to understand like why this bootstrap mentality or people's choice to live in poverty or like that kind of thing. I'm just like, also bullshit, because everything is working against that. There is not a choice there. Like, why would we consider choice being like keeping a roof over your head and feeding your kids? Like, that's not a choice. That's like, that's prison. I don't know. Anyway.
Yeah. And when we look at it, like, from the like aerial view of like government intervention, right? Like, nope, we're not going to intervene in these black communities who are strung out on crack. No, because they should just deal with them themselves. And so we let whole communities. But when it's white people with opioid epidemic,
we have whole new vocabulary for that.
Now we have these detox centers, and now we're actually gonna criminalize and charge some of these pharmaceutical companies who will just pay the fines and then keep doing it.
Oh shoot!
But we think we have this illusion of always. But if you're born in a community that is saturated with poverty or whatever the situation may be, and
by design,
and then there's literally no government intervention, or there's any kind of communal intervention, right? But we always just want to leave it up to like the schools to deal with it, or the family, family. I can't remember what I'm talking about, but you get it. Social services, that kind of, like we put all the burden. Oh, police are going to be the ones. We'll just incarcerate. The prisons will take all those addicts. And like, at the end of the day, there's a system that's meant to propel and prop up certain people and keep them out of addiction. Other people we're okay with letting them drift off into being unhoused and being thrown at the wayside. And we just, the whole bootstraps. Well, see, you should have just figured that shit out before your family was abusive and before you were malnourished because you couldn't go to school with food, like literally like, and that's kind of go even back to the whole rat experiment where like, oh, if there's actually like a stable environment that has healthy community and there's activity and things, people live their life choices shape up a whole other direction.
Right. It dilutes the potency of that the drug, really.
Right.
I mean, because it's like, yeah, there's not a void of feeling like I would imagine. Here's like, again, I feel like I always have to get a caveat. Like, I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about, no. But at the same time, like what I understand is that like what the rat needed, like they were offered a space of belonging, of expressing all the desires and things right. like that were needed for food, for sex, for all the things. And I mean, I don't know much about a rat desiring or not desiring sex, but like trying to keep baby rats around, you know,
sure,
like
right.
there was something driving them and they were able to respond to it and not like treat it or I don't know. They were just given a fullness of life, I guess.
Yes.
I mean, as much as you can as a lab rat.
Yeah. Again, as much as you can. And you're still in boxes, still in this prison. Goes back to the whole, how expressive can we be in a truly capitalistic? You know?
Yeah.
Like, how can I really?
What does our rat cage look like? Yeah.
The simulation is strong. And you know, the walls are very propped up around me.
Yes.
But yeah, I think ultimately the opportunity to be fully human is like, and we just as a culture just like very much like, however much we can diminish the human aspect of you and make you more like the cog in a machine, the more you'll be a benefit for us in society. And then we wonder why teachers are leaving the education field, why healthcare workers, like we're just not valuing people and and even the quote unquote good work they're doing in the community.
Yeah, right.
And we just say, well, that's just part of what your task is as the rat in the education system. You're just supposed to teach and, get the tests and do things. And then, why are teachers becoming alcoholics and addicts, like, cause no one's looking after their emotional well-being. They're not being
their
supported.
Financial well-being.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I know we're covering a lot of issues. We're going to solve all the world's problems right here.
It's
Sarah.
that universe quote, right? Like how can you talk about one thing without it connecting to something, like leading to something that's bigger? Yeah. But I'm so glad we're here to solve all these issues though.
Yeah.
Like
thank you
just
for
two white
here.
folks just like solving
millennials
solving world issues. Gosh, that's the first time two white millennials have come together to solve the world.
First time on a podcast, no less.
On a podcast.
By a white male.
So, I mean, I'm looking to you as the person with
we just
the
need to get more microphones in front of white people. We need to get more microphones, more people out there talking about it.
Say.
If we can educate. No, I appreciate the conversation. And while we don't have all the answers, we have a right to exist and be here and to share our stories.
Yeah.
And you get to be fully human with me here. And that's what's beautiful about this experience is that the world might be a fucking chaotic place, but here in Micah's little podcast office,
it's real nice.
We get to just play with cats and dogs and drink some mimosas and say fuck it to the man, the capitalist.
From this from this tiny space. I love it.
Well, I know we've probably gone over how much time I said I would keep you for.
No, I knew. I mean, I told you I am chatty. I was like, oh, you're going to edit this, right? Nope, just like throw it out there.
It's just going to go.
All the words.
As minimally edited as possible.
Yeah.
But one last question. What do you hope to do in 2022? Hope to do in 2022.
Beyond survive is at the core of that. I will survive this.
As far as if you could see yourself, maybe it's not even a year from now, maybe 2 years from what's your direction orientation you're setting yourself to with your art, your spiritual direction, and your yoga?
Oh gosh, I like that question a lot. I think I don't want my head to be the primary answer to this. What do I feel? I think I'm just at the surface of discovering how these three practices weave together for myself and for whatever it's, I don't like the word producing, but whatever it's producing outside of me, right? Like that connection I feel with other people.
Sure.
So I think a big thing is just to continue to explore and allow that to emerge, like that connective piece. And I think the question you asked earlier about how these practices contribute to resistance and social action, I I mean, my hope, and I think what I trust to be true is that if I continue to like live into this space and live with other people, I mean, I'm definitely not the only person doing work like this. Like all of my friends, even you with this podcast, like you are diving into some depth of exploring just what it is to be human and what it is to live in a body right now.
Yeah.
And so I think just that continued collaboration to explore how we can work together to create at least a little spark of peace within ourselves and within other people and join together for like social change. I mean, I think that's like the real holy grounds of this work. Yeah.
Snap.
So that's what I want. And I also hope my biggest hope is that I don't get so caught up in fear of like, I mean, I always have that like, oh gosh, I'm trying on all these different things. And maybe I just need a stable job that pays a lot of money, and just to be like in that space, like it's a little uncomfortable to do so many things and try to juggle all this. So I hope as much as possible that I am taking strategic risk to continue this work in whatever way, shape, or form that is, and to not hold it so tightly like I think I know what it is, but to just like begin to release that and trust that my spiritual director used this term vibrational resonance, that that it is part of the vibrational resonance of what you're doing, Mica, what our friends are doing.
Sure. And
that actually I guess to use my weaving metaphor, weaves into like a fabric of like whatever is next. But I have to ask you same question.
Oh, I'm hoping to, I think for doing this podcast, and I just started in November, has been to really just put more expression and words to all of the thoughts and feelings that I have stored up, just like bottled up inside. And I've shared this with previous folks that, you know, some of it's exploring my own intentions behind social justice work and what does it mean to bring my full self to that as a white person, and what are my intentions around it, and really trying to elevate these issues, to talk about them as like deeply, like you said, systemic sins almost. Like, you know, when we talk about my upbringing, it was always sin is don't look at somebody lustfully, and don't these things are just like, these are just human things that we're just, you know, putting a sin title on it. But let's talk about the, systemic poverty as like a sin. Let's look at, like, even what we talked about with the investment and divestment in people's communal destructiveness of addiction and criminalizing people and putting them in prison. And I have a brother who is incarcerated, and just hearing his experiences. And so I am excited. He's actually getting out here in like 3 weeks.
Amazing. Wow.
It's been 7.5 years. I'm going to have him on the show at some point, share his story, what's going on. And so I think for me, just exploring what it means to step into this new realm of being Micah Chrisman, who is, all intents and purposes, no longer an evangelical Christian, but still a very deeply spiritual person who connects to the sacredness of others. Yeah. And so I'd like to express that more in my writing. I want to express it more in my work. There's just a lot of possibilities that ultimately, you know, when I have the passion, motivation to pursue it, it's usually I usually have that whenever I'm feeling stable, when I'm feeling supported by my community. And so it's hard to pursue your dreams when you're feeling isolated or depressed or just disconnected from people. And we always just want people to self-actualize on their own in a vacuum. Just come back when you're like a perfect version of yourself, you know? And that's just like, it's such bullshit. So I see this as like an ongoing just processing and living out what I believe. And I'm going to get it wrong. You know, we're all going to get it wrong. I'll probably say the wrong thing on this show at some point. I'll do the wrong thing in real life. And we just have to give each other grace and understanding to understand that we're human. And that's what it means to be human, to be imperfect. but we can always try better, do better, you know?
Oh, I love it. Micah, I will pray for you.
Yeah, pray for me. And of course, all else. Yeah. Oh, that reminds me. Today's prayers are sponsored by the Wiccan collective of the New England Undergrowth Coven.
Oh, I love that coven.
If these people actually exist, this is purely by coincidence.
Yeah,
it's all
you
set.
sound awesome. Please be on Micah's show.
Yeah, the Wiccans, they're so worried about me. They're even praying for me. The Wiccans.
That's how rough things are over here.
Of the Undergrowth Coven.
Oh
I don't even know what that means.
I really like it. I mean, it sounds like they gather in some kind of magical forest, mossy
absolutely.
Forest. Yeah.
Yeah. They're sacrificing animals for me.
They're legit. Okay, can I give a public plug that I hope you'll... Have you had Abhishek on this show?
I have him on my list to come on the show. Okay. Absolutely. I have not had him yet.
Speaking of animal sacrifice...
Stop. No.
That's it. Just ask him about that.
No, shit.
It's a... Oh, no. We were joking about it earlier. It's not sacrifice. Abhishek has a story that I feel like now you have to center this.
Okay,
and
bet.
It's a deeply spiritual thing that I actually loved hearing about that involves an animal dying. And I think that's it. I don't want to spoil anything.
PETA will not be the sponsor for that episode.
They sure will
they
not.
Sure as hell.
They will not. I actually am because I eat a largely plant-based diet, no meat, no dairy. And so,
beautiful. Yeah.
I mean, I'm plugging that for what it's worth.
Yeah.
It's amazing. Anyway, Abhishek. Look forward to that episode.
I want to do it. Hey, Sarah, where can we find you online?
Oh, yeah. Okay. My website is sarahdunnpickrell.com. I'm sure there's people know the spelling.
It's done D-U-N-N-E. I wanted to say Dunay.
Dunay.
That's what I
know.
said.
Not French. Very Irish. Yeah.
I love it.
sarahdunnpickrell.com. You can find me at Sarah Dunn Pickrell on Instagram. Not super active there. And then, same thing on Venmo if you just want to. I'm just kidding. I'm totally kidding.
Absolutely.
No,
Everybody, I can't pay Sarah for being the wonderful artist. And we've talked about this. Every artist needs to know their worth. Send Sarah Dunn Pickrell at Sarah Dunn Pickrell on Venmo. Some money.
Oh my gosh.
Send
that
her
was
some
a
money
total joke. But also Sarah Dunn Pickrell at gmail.com. I love talking to people about all things related and unrelated to the 1 million topics that we've covered today. So,
and you work with clients, right?
I do.
Yeah,
I do. I
love
working with directees. If anybody's interested, I do take art commissions and then yoga, of course. And I actually, another plug, I started, I'm a practitioner at Etiquette in the Bauer building. My dear friend Amanda owns this incredible, I would say spiritually based, sort of anti-spa, I guess. She's an esthetician, so she does
spa. I like that.
Yeah, she does not call it that. This is not like a branding thing. So Etiquette, it's transitioning into well known. She's also a spiritual director. She's amazing. But I'm doing these embodiment yoga. It's kind of a weaving together of I'm saying weaving a lot. I use my fibers background. But spiritual direction and yoga, kind of blending those two practices, since I think they really can be so close. So if anybody wants to explore that, check it out. Look up Etiquette Beauty or Well Known, Instagram, all the Google things, that's it.
Beautiful. Sarah,
thank
you again. And everybody, as you know, you can find Pray for Mica Pod on your social media platforms. Go to the website, anywhere where you like to consume your podcast content. And also for fun and shits and grins, if you have a question that you'd like to ask me, I haven't done this yet, but why not? Might as well feature anything while Sarah's here. You can send your question to prayformicapod@gmail.com. And cool. If you're a listener and if you just have a random question you'd like to ask me or a guest that has to do with anything with art, activism, spirituality, and our cosmic insignificance. Anything that you just have content-wise had a question and you've always wanted to ask me, feel free to email it there. And it might be featured on the show. Who knows? Maybe I'll try something new.
A kind of a Q&A? That would be awesome.
Yeah, maybe just someone to read someone's question for the day or episode. explore.
Do you have theme music, Micah?
I do. I have like an intro and an outro.
Oh,
that's
so good.
And now that I actually did a Pray for Micah story in this episode, I actually have like a little.
Oh, that's
Pray for
awesome.
Micah. It goes just like that.
That's so good.
All right.
Cue theme music.
Cue theme music. Thanks for joining me for the Pray for Micah podcast. Be sure to like and subscribe on this channel and follow me on social media. Pray for Micah Pod on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and yes, even TikTok. We'll see you next time.
You are now re-entering the normal world.